Okay. Well, hello, everyone. Um, I am so excited that you're all here with us today. I usually say good morning, but I know that many of you are on other coasts, and so it could be afternoon. In which case, just happy you're here. My name is Carrie Scott. I work at Spruce Health. We have Amanda Buduris joining us today, and I am so excited to have her intro herself. I always like to let speakers talk about themselves because it's a much richer, interesting intro than what I could possibly do. But as a reminder of why we're here today, we're here to discuss breaking the isolation, harnessing the power of peer support for a sustainable, fulfilling therapy practice. And actually, just leading up to going live this morning, Amanda and I were talking about isolation and its many forms and how we're all facing it, not just in the workplace, but sort of universally. So, we're going to be covering a lot of great territory today and helping everyone kind of sort through that and know that you're not alone. Light housekeeping for everyone. So this session is being recorded. In the event that you miss something or you have to drop early, I will be sending out a link to all of this later today. So don't worry, you will not miss a thing. We will also be sharing the slides, so those will be available to you along with the recording. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them into the Q&A. We also have chat enabled, and Amanda is going to be making this somewhat interactive. So throughout the session, she may ask you questions or want to know where your head's at. Please feel free to just join in and drop your thoughts in there. It just makes for a much richer discussion. And with that, I think I've thought of everything. But if not, ask me a question. Let's see, what do we have on our next slide here? This might be an about Amanda slide. Yes, Amanda, passing the torch to you. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Carrie. Like you said, I think this is so timely in a number of different ways and so relevant to a number of us who, if you're similar to me, you probably started if you have a private practice, it might have been close to COVID time. I'll talk a little bit about some other personal things and work changes in my life that lead to, why isolation is a thing that can continue to come up. Like if you move, if you change jobs, if move careers entirely, whatever it might be. So it's always something that, we should be aware of is how are we doing? How are we taking care of our social health, which is a part of our mental health? And so for me, when it came to this webinar, it made a lot of sense to have the chat open because it can be very easy to just watch a webinar and kind of like engage and your social neurobiology and all those neurons, they're still kicking on. But if we can all say hi in the chat, if you can let me know who you are and where you're from, just as a nice way to see who's kind of in the room. Um, and I think it's always nice. I know when I see someone who's in my state or in my area, then I go, ooh, I'm not alone in this moment. So just as a way to promote a little bit of that engagement in that way. And so my name is Amanda. I am currently living in Seattle, Washington, but I'm originally from Chicago. I did all my graduate school in Iowa and then moved to Oregon for work. And now I move up here. So we've got a few people from Texas, New Orleans, New York, Georgia, Wisconsin, Maryland. Cool. So we are pretty much spanned across
Yeah,
everywhere.
that's a nice showing across the states.
Yeah. Andrea from Des Moines, Iowa. I did all my schooling in Ames and Grinnell, Iowa. So you are probably the only one in this room familiar with those areas. So very, very cool to see you all, even in this virtual way. So I'm a licensed psychologist. I am a solo practice owner, currently living in Washington. I got my license originally in Oregon, but now that I'm in Washington as a psychologist, I have access to what's called the PsyPact legislature, which helps me to help clients across 42 states in the nation, which is awesome. I am a first generation woman of color. I am a very proud cat mom of four. Four was not the plan, but it just kind of happened that way. I also really love to travel. I really love baking. So those are some of my personal facts. And a lot of what I do, a lot of my therapy clients are therapists themselves, I think because they resonate with other work that I do, but in my therapy practice, and I have a coaching and consulting practice as well. A lot of what I do is helping to address burnout, perfectionism, and all of the things that make it really hard to have a sustainable private practice. I think there's a benefit in how much information is out there these days when it comes to what it's like to build a private practice and what can be possible. And that can put a lot of pressure on us, especially if we're siloed in that. If we see, like, well, this is how it's supposed to be, or this is what I'm supposed to do. Am I wrong if I don't do this or that? And that's one reason we're going to talk about building some professional community and support as a part of today's webinar. Really, my hope, one of my missions when it comes to supporting therapists is to stop all the different cycles that we can have around overworking, not setting good and healthy boundaries in our business, which obviously impacts our life, and to create practices that really align with your personal and professional values. Within that, I teach a lot of marketing strategy, especially SEO, and now AI. O is a thing with artificial intelligence out there these days, copywriting, and lots of different business tools. So, not speaking too much to those today, but those are definitely resources that I have across my social media and my website. And then, Carrie, I will pass it back over to you to introduce Spruce.
Thank you. This will be real quick because I have a feeling that most of the folks on this call today are already Spruce customers. So thank you and welcome, and thanks for joining us. Just a real quick, in case you are new to Spruce. So Spruce is a HIPAA grade cloud-based communication platform that was actually built for healthcare providers. It combines business phone with texting and faxing and telemedicine. And it's basically been developed to optimize and streamline workflows. And whether you're a solo provider or you work in a group practice, we have folks telling us that it's absolutely saved countless hours every week, even just from an admin perspective. So if you want to learn more about Spruce, I encourage you to just jump on over to the website later today. But those are my 2 cents on the Spruce front. And with that, back to the topic at hand. I'm going to turn off my video and let Amanda have at it. But I did want to say, if y'all have questions, please do drop them in as you think of them, because Amanda will graciously take them as we go. We'll also save some time at the end for more. So pop your questions in if you have them. We're here for it, and it's an interactive session. Thanks, Amanda. I'm going to let you take it away.
Thanks, Gary. All right, so today we're going to talk about 5 different kind of pillars that I like to think about when it comes to how and why we face isolation. And I'm going to share a little bit of some of my stories around things that I've struggled with and things that I have worked on and I'm currently working on to make sure that as a solo private practice therapist who just moved states. My partner accepted a job in a new state, and now, that has left me um, not isolated because I am working on it, but it's meant I have to make some of these changes that I'm talking about in today's presentation. So it's going to be a little bit about personal stuff, but also obviously we're going to talk about how this applies to your practice as well. So let me know in the chat, even to begin with, why did you get into private practice? And you can just type in 1, 2, 3, 4, all of them, 1 and 2, whatever it is. But these are some of the most common themes that I hear. It's because people are burnt out where they have been working. It's because they just wanted to be their own boss. They saw maybe there's a grading earning potential, or maybe someone wanted to work alone. So we've got some combination of things. Being laid off from agency job absolutely can be something that pushes you into it. It's one of those like blessing and a curse kind of things. Yeah, so we got some variety of how people are feeling about things. Thanks for sharing so far. I started because of burnout. For me, I was working in a university counseling center. I just started, I graduated with my PhD in 2020. So when all of the crap hit the fan. And already that was, a rough time for everyone. And so for me, I was grateful to even have a job. I was like, great. I can start paying down some of these student loans that I'm coming fresh out of. And it was, I struggled a lot with feeling like I should be grateful just to have a job and just to take whatever was given to me instead of like being allowed to be very angry with how things were going at work, how hard I was being worked, how much I was being pushed. So yeah, I see a lot of you sharing too, like, yeah, the aspects of what you're looking for and again, your values that has influenced what you're looking for and how you're trying to build your business. So while I love private practice, I did not start it for all of the reasons that I asked you all to speak to. Burnout, yes, but I didn't start it because I was thinking about, I want to make more money. I was making an okay amount of money, and fresh out of grad school was the most money I've ever made in my life. So that was exciting enough. I didn't do it for the money. I didn't do it because I wanted to be my own boss. I had no idea about running business. Again, I'm a first generation college student. No one in my family has started their own business. So I had no idea what I was supposed to do there. And I'm an introvert. I can get overwhelmed with a lot of social interactions, but I loved my coworkers. I thought maybe one day I might start a private practice, but things are good right now until I started really burning out in all of the COVID dynamics. Being tired working for the man. Yeah, being a single parent in the pandemic, wanting control over things. All of these things, I didn't feel like I was allowed to think, right? I was just like, okay, like I'll just deal with it until again, burnout hit so strong that I didn't feel like I had a choice anymore. So I left my job and I love private practice. I love what I've built. But what I didn't love was the stark transition between I would have daily lunches and me and my friends at work would, message each other. We didn't have Slack. What do we have? Teams. We'd message each other about being mad at our supervisors or being mad at how someone doesn't get the stress that they're putting us under, or we can't believe that they just took away our note writing time and added on a last minute walk-in triage appointment. Like as stressful as the job was, having the community made it a little more bearable. If I didn't have the friends that I had at that practice, I probably would have left earlier from burnout. But again, the burnout overruled as it kind of should, right? You can't do your job well as a therapist if you are burnt out. But again, it was a huge transition between daily lunches and messages throughout the day to all of a sudden, I am all by myself. And that was, fine for a little bit. Part of me thought, like, I can do this. It's okay. Like, I don't know what it's like to run a business. Do I even remember what it's like to be a therapist? And now I don't have anyone to blame for rules I want to set anymore. Like, what I missed about agency life was, oh, sorry, the office is closed. Like, that's what the boss says. I'm not in charge of it. Nope, sorry, I can't work past 5. But now, yeah, I'm the one making decisions. So I'm the one who's in charge of all of that. So it was fine in a lot of ways. And I was busy, and I'm grateful that my private practice filled up pretty quickly. But again, throughout all of it, the only person that I really had with me was my partner who was doing his job working from home as well. And so he doesn't get it. He's not a therapist. He doesn't get the unique stressors of that job. And so it was fine for a while. But again, even as an introvert, even as someone who, I'm not like the most outgoing person in the room, I still missed the connection. And so I started looking for ways to connect with therapists. Even as I had an all virtual practice, I was still pretty new to the city that I had moved to recently. Because again, I moved to Eugene, Oregon for work. And 2 years later, I left the job. So I'm still kind of new. And it's still the middle of 2022, which, like, yes, vaccinations came out, so some people felt more safe to hang out in person, but I still didn't really have professional contacts. I had those 3 friends at work, but one of them left to go back to her home state, and the other 2 just got more and more busy because the agency kept burning them out. And so, really, what I realized I had to do was I had to put myself into the room. I had to put myself into spaces. I've very intentionally, so 2022 was my first like half year in private practice. 2023 was my first full year. And it was very much in that year when it started to click more for me of my focus can't only be on growing my business. It also has to be on making friends and being friends and making connections with people who get it, people who are also therapists, people who are also entrepreneurs, people who also want to build the type of business that I want to build. And so, one thing I realized, which is actually a little bit funny for me, even though I have been getting out there more, I am such a present focused person that I don't have very many photos of the people that I hang out with, but I have done so many fun social events in the past 2 years, like going on international retreats, joining an ambassador program where I get to meet other mental health professionals who are big in the space. You might recognize a lot of people up in this row, people from the Therapist Network. Gabrielle does lots of lovely talks with Spruce as well. So there are lots of people who I finally found like I connected with, who got what it was like to want to do the work that I want to do. And that's finally what started to make me feel like, okay, like I'm not alone in this. And that has been huge for what that's done, not just for my personal life, but also for my professional life in making me feel like I have a really good values-driven therapy practice and coaching business. So let me know in the chat, how would you rate your social life and just in business? I mean, if you want to share personally, you're obviously welcome to. But on the business end, do you feel like you have a good amount of professional networks, whether that's, referring clients from, person to person, or people who get where you are and motivate you? I see a lot of twos. So a lot of people are like, okay, could be better, which, yeah, I think is, we're therapists. We are always looking for um, growth. So maybe that part is showing out of like, it's pretty good, but maybe it could be better. But I think that's helpful to reflect on is, what are the parts that could be better? There's a few people in the room who feel like they've got that perfect balance. Awesome. For those who are like, it could be better, what part is it? Is it that like I've got some people, but they don't exactly get it? I know I've talked with people recently, some therapists recently, who are like, I like some people in the personal way. Like, I think we would connect from some like cultural pieces and some shared identities, but maybe not from like, if you're insurance based versus private pay based, like you may not like cross refer clients to one another. So it's helpful to think about what is the aspect that could be better, because that might influence, well, then what are your action steps? What do you want to do next to make it better? What rooms do you want to invite yourself into and to be in? So, talking a little bit about these pillars that I want to go back to, when it comes to really the value of peer support, like I think we all get that. Like as therapists, we know we can't do it alone, right? And it is so easy to try and do it alone anyway. Especially, you have probably seen the Facebook groups or some Reddit threads. And when people can get anonymous, people and things can get negative and judgmental very quickly. And so while there is a lot of free content, a lot of accessible content out there, I know when I was early in private practice and I joined some local Facebook groups for therapists, some nationwide, like having an online practice, having a private pay practice, like I was excited to like, oh, I'm going to connect with people. And the negativity and the judgment in some of those spaces made me retreat. Right? It's like, well, I'm not going to ask a question in there. That's not safe. And it's not peer support if it's not actually supportive. There's a difference between I have access to people and I have access to people who are actually where I want to be, or where I want to go, or like I'm exactly where I am right now. That's very different to have someone who really gets you, is in alignment with you, and wants to see you succeed. And so that is the peer support I'm talking about here, because it's not just, um, I'm sure that you all, can pull up the similar studies and data that I've seen around like it's the perception of loneliness that actually matters more than the loneliness itself. You might be surrounded by lots of people in your personal and your professional life. You might be a part of 20 different Facebook groups, but if you actually still feel alone in all of that, if you don't actually feel like I've got those one or two people who I know have my back and are going to support me, then it's still feeling isolated, right? So again, when we connect with people who actually get it, things feel more possible. We actually start to feel like I'm not going to feel alone forever. And I've seen a lot of solo private practice providers start to connect with people who are like, okay, you're entrepreneurial like I am, and we have similar interests, and we're noticing the same gaps in our community. And they've actually grown into group practices or collectives, or they've started other business ventures together. Like I know a lot of therapists who team up, start a group practice, and then also start like a retreat business on the side. So there's just so much that can happen when you have genuine and authentic peer support. And so that's a lot of what I'm going to be coming back to today is it's not just about collecting numbers, right? Like how many people can I say I know, but how many people really and truly can I rely on? And if it feels like that could be better, well, again, in what ways can that be better? Because, yeah, a lot of just looking at some of the things in the chat too, there is a lot of time that we spend on marketing our practice, growing our practice, doing things like that. The more we can also outsource some of that work. That's towards the end of this webinar. So you're beating me to the punch there, which is great. The more you can outsource and let go of things, the more you can focus on what is good for you. Instead of being in any spaces where you are noticing judgment or scarcity mindset, again, really focus on connecting with people who are like you and want to be in the same space, want to go where you want to go. That's where you're really going to learn both valuable business skills as well as life skills, right? To be able to hear, like, well, how did other people, if this is what you want to do, how did other people go from insurance to private pay? How did other people raise the rate? How did other people add a coaching program? And if you're surrounded by spaces where people are saying it's unethical to do that, you can't do that, all you care about is the money, or shouldn't mix coaching with therapy, which, like, yes, you shouldn't. That's why there's ways to split it. But if you're surrounded with just people who say, like, you can't make this work, then you're not going to make it work. And that's when we start to build a business that is for someone else as opposed to for ourselves. And your business at the end of the day, remember all those reasons that you wrote 1, 2, 3, 4, it's for you, right? Because a lot of you probably wanted to be your own boss. You wanted to create your own schedule. You wanted to determine your own financial ceiling or lack thereof. And so the more we spend time with people who actually get that, the more likely that it is that you will succeed. And again, really what that does is just normalize the humanness of what we are doing. Because when we hear from other people who struggle with the decision of insurance versus private pay, struggle with the decision of rate setting, struggle with I'm completely burnt out and I don't know what to do, but I don't want to rely on therapy as my only source of income forever. To have someone be in that space with you, right? That's where we start to let go of some of the pressure. I saw the word pressure come up in the chat earlier of like, what is it that people expect you to do to work online versus in person, or the other way around, or to have your business be that way? Like, if we actually just get in spaces with people like us who are vulnerable about what worked, what didn't work. Hey, I felt the exact same way when I was making the transition away from insurance or when I raised my rate. When we see that level of humanness and vulnerability, as opposed to, again, like the judgment and the my opinion is right and how dare you, XYZ kind of stuff, then we get to, again, we build the practice that works for us. And if we're building a practice that works for us, we're less likely to burn out and we can stay happier and we can stay happier longer. And that's the goal, right? To actually be happy with what we're doing. Like your business is a business. You are a therapist because you care about people, but I bet a lot of you also want to have your own life, right? You want to have, like, what are the things that I am? Do I like traveling? Do I like sports? Do I like, what do you do in your life outside of being a business owner and a therapist? Because if those are the two things you resonate most with right now, I bet there's more that you want for yourself. And so again, as therapists, We are highly educated people. We at least have masters. Some of us have doctorates. Some people have masterates and doctorates and also somehow like other degrees. So we like being smart. We like figuring things out. It is uncomfortable for us when we don't know what we're doing. Let me know in the chat if that resonates for you. I know it does for me. I am a very high achieving, I don't even know if I can say recovering perfectionist. I'm getting better at it, but I still like things to be nice. I like things to be perfect. So it's hard when it feels like we're not doing things the way that they're supposed to, or the best ways, or the right things, or whatever that is, especially when we see so many people online talking about the fast and easy success, right? How I filled my practice in 2 weeks, how I got X amount of, tens of thousands of followers in a week or stuff like that. Like we see that kind of information. And on one hand, it can be inspiring. It can be like, cool, maybe I can do that too. But if you haven't had those successes, it's so easy to go to, what am I doing wrong? Right? What am I missing? I don't get it. And instead of, um, again, if we don't know who to reach out to, if we don't have people, you all might probably have your own therapist to process this with. If you have family or friends to process it with, you might bring it there. But if there's not a way to like, how do we implement that support back into the business? Again, that's where we just feel not confident as a business owner, maybe not as confident even as a therapist. I know for me, it's very easy for me to get stuck in like, well, I should still just do it myself. Like I have a team of 4 or 5. I have like virtual assistants, I have a business manager, and sometimes it's still hard for me to delegate that workout because in my mind, well, I can do it best. But it's not about doing it best and doing it perfect. It's about helping people help me live the balanced life that I want to have. And so we, again, cannot go through it alone. It is not a badge of honor or a point of pride to be able to say, look at the 50 million things that I've done if it's burning you out in the process. And again, you're still at that point where it's like, well, business could be better, social life could be better, social connections could be better. Like, this is where it's really about bringing those values back up into play of where are your values getting met? What are some values that are not getting met? That was one of my favorite activities to do with clients. I have like a values alignment sheet with like when it comes to work, with friends, relationships, hobbies. How much do you feel like you're meeting these values, right? And no wonder we get anxious or depressed or just feel kind of blah if we've got these values that we're not meeting. And so we've got to work on busting this, I can do it alone, I'm a lone wolf, it's all good myth, because it is a myth at the end of the day. Trying to go it alone, it costs therapists so much. It can literally cost money, right? Like what you're able to take home, what you're able to save. If you're one of those people who, like me, I didn't know what the heck the profit first model was. I didn't know how much money you should be saving in like a rainy day fund or towards retirement. Because again, first time business owner, don't know what I'm doing, just wanted to be a therapist who wasn't burnt out. So if we're not comfortable asking people for that kind of feedback of like, well, what did you do and how did you set this up and what have you seen successful or not successful, then again, it can literally cost us money. It can cost us confidence of, again, why can this person run a successful practice, but I seem to struggle with it. And it can also cost the business, right? Not in the sense of you need a bunch of people to network with in order to fill your practice, but again, those people who burn out, those people who say, this clearly is not for me because I just can't make it work, there have been people who have left private practice. And if that's genuinely the right decision for you for whatever reason, I'm all for that. But if it's because you feel like clearly there's no way to make it work because you haven't been able to learn from peers about how to make it work, then that's, we can do something about that. We have flexibility, we have options there. So just like we tell our clients, we are not meant to go it alone. Private and solo practice, whatever you call it, it may be the structure of how you operate your business, but it doesn't have to reflect the level of support that you receive. really and truly, the more support that I have gotten from, again, hiring a virtual assistant to help me with my blogs and help me with the SEO knowledge I have, but like you do the implementation of it, or another virtual assistant to help with managing my phone calls and my emails that I get from new clients or current clients. The more I've been able to get support, the more I have felt like I can actually do this, right? When I just get to focus on my zone of genius, which is being a therapist, right? Like that's what I signed up for. I didn't sign up for the admin, I didn't sign up for filing taxes and all that stuff. I signed up to be a therapist. So the more support I get for my business structure, the more support I get from connecting with peers who get it, the more I feel confident. And so I think that's really important for you to think about when you're stuck, when you don't know something, if you're not asking for advice, if it's hard for you to get vulnerable with others, right? What do you notice happens in your practice? What do you notice happens in the thoughts in your mind? What critical thoughts come up? What happens to your confidence? Because if we can flip that on its head and we can say when we're stuck, we can say we don't know, we ask for advice, we get vulnerable. There are genuinely so many people who want you to succeed at private practice. And I'm not just saying, like, go hire a coach or something like that. There are supportive, free or low cost spaces where you can just be with people who want to see you succeed. So if you are already starting to think about, like, well, what are those spaces and how do I get a part of them? I'm going to share that more in closer to the end of the webinar, but please feel free to put that information in the chat if there are groups you all have found that you have found very helpful. If there are groups you found where it's like, I hate that one, I'm never checking that one again. It's the best thing I did to leave that group. There's a lot of Facebook groups I've left because, like, again, I said, too negative, too judgmental. And best thing I did for my mental health in that like first and a half year of practice was to not be in those spaces. But yeah, this is a collaborative space that we have here. So you all also have a wealth of resources, I am sure. So feel free to share those in the chat if you have them. Then it comes to the aspect of accountability, right? So in part, you're working on, okay, I can work on reaching out for help. I can work on asking for advice. I can work on, being more vulnerable with my peers. But then there's the accountability component of it. And here's why this matters. Because again, in private practice, you are your own boss, and that is amazing most of the time until, like I mentioned, you realize there's no bad guy to blame your decisions on. So there's a lot of times in my first year of practice when I was like, I'm not working after 5. I don't want to do that. I want to, eat dinner with my partner. I'm like a eat by 5 kind of person. That's my favorite dinner time. I don't know how people eat at like 8 o'clock. I love eating by 5. So I'm not going to have sessions after 5. And then, I'm my own boss. So a couple comes in, they really want to work with me. They can only do like 6:30. And I'm like, sure, I can do 6:30. That works for me. What am I doing? I'm doing something that I said I didn't want to do. Or, hey, I want to raise my rates in the new year, but I have no idea how much to raise them by. If I tell no one, then no one will know if I got too anxious or too scared to actually send out the notice of rate increase form at the end of the year. If I don't have points of accountability, right? Again, like family, friends, partners, they can serve this to an extent, but it's very different when someone is in the exact same role as you. Someone else also wants to set boundaries around their calendar and not scheduling on Mondays or Fridays or having Wednesday as their admin day or whatever it is. Someone else wants to move from insurance to private pay. Someone else wants to, whatever it is, they have more skin in the game and they understand even better how important this is and why this is something that matters, right? Because they're in it and they get it. And so having a person, right, like your one business bestie, whatever you want to call them, or a small group of people who can actually hold you accountable can help you stay on track with your goals, right? Because again, they get it And I've seen so many times in the group programs that I run, someone is like, well, I'm going to raise my rate by January 1st. And someone's like, well, now I'm motivated. I'm going to raise my rate December 15th. And someone's like, well, that motivates me to see you all and how you're raising your rates. And I thought I'd only raise $5, but now I'm going to raise $20. Like, just to see people who are like you doing the things that you want to do, it builds so much more encouragement and momentum and optimism. And it actually helps when you want to share your wins with the other person, right? Like, yes, your partner, your family, your friends, they will support you. And it's different. It hits a little bit different when people don't exactly get it because they're not in it. And so, what works is having a dedicated, at least person or small group of people that you actually get to know, right? Someone who actually knows these are my goals, these are my challenges, and this person knows how exactly to help you, right? Even when I was working at that university, my supervisor had asked me, like, how will I know that you're struggling? And I'm like, well, if my door is closed and I'm not in sessions, that's probably a bad sign because what that means is that I have blocked off, like, I don't even want people talking to me, right? Like, I'm too stressed. I have to hunker down and do my work. And I could do notes with my door open. I could send emails with my door open. But if my door was closed, that for me was my way of saying, like, you know what, you can at least knock and check in and be like, how are you really doing? Right? So if you know what it is that you struggle with and how people can tell, again, if you're a virtual practice or let's say you're dedicated person or a small group of people, if they're not close to you, then what are some of the like online tells that they'll have, right? If you're very active on social media, if you haven't posted stories in a week and normally you post stories every day, hey, is something okay? You overwhelmed? Is something going on? You all right? Like if that is a cue in for you of like, if I'm not posting stories, that probably means I'm exhausted or um, something has come up in life or in business or whatever it is. But if no one knows what your tells are, no one knows how to like support you then, right? And again, that is so easy if you are in solo practice and if you are at least like mostly virtual practice. I know a lot of us do hybrid. I'm probably like 90% virtual, 10% in person, maybe 80-20. So it can be really, really easy to not have anyone know that you are struggling. So having a person, having a small group of people, what you want to work on, where I'm struggling, and how can you help me? How will you know that I'm struggling? And here's what you can do. That is really going to help you make a lot of momentum, right? Not just on business stuff, but on personal stuff too. And I always tell people all the time, I'm happy to, DM me. I could be a part of your people. Like, let me know how I can support you or what goals you need cheering on. What doesn't work is hardly checking in with your accountability person, right? Because if you have like an accountability buddy, it goes both ways. They probably also want you to check in on them. So if you're not checking in with them about them, if you're not checking in with them about you, obviously that doesn't work. They don't know then when you're struggling, you don't know when they're struggling, and then it's hard to build that mutually beneficial relationship. If we're not sharing when we made a mistake, like to be able to say, okay, I'm gonna October 1st, I'm sending out that rate increase of $10 an hour. And then October 15th comes around and your accountability person is like, hey, how did it go? You're like, yeah, it was great. But then actually you didn't do it because you got anxious and you said, oh, I'll just wait till January 1st. If they don't know that you did something you didn't want to do, right? That you set a goal and then you kind of like let it go for a reason, it's hard for them to support you. So, yes, even as high achieving, maybe perfectionistic people, it can be very easy for us to just say, like, yeah, I did the thing. Yeah, I committed. I'm good. And then maybe we didn't do it, but we have to have that level of vulnerability in being able to say, like, I messed up. I had a block. Something got in the way. It felt too vulnerable. I worried too much. All the news came out, something political happened. It just didn't feel like the right time. And that's reasonable, right? But then to be able to revisit, So then when are you going to send out those letters, right? When might be a better time, even if it's not the best time. It's also not going to work if you just put on a mask again that everything is fine, right? Because everything is literally these days not like fine 100% of the time, right? Like if we're not being vulnerable about like, yeah, it's kind of been a crappy day. Like, yeah, I had a really hard therapy session. Yeah, I don't even know what I did in that therapy session. Was I even a therapist in that session? Like if we are just pretending everything is good and fine, people can't support us, right? And if people have a hard time supporting us, it might also be hard for them to ask support of us. There's that different kind of reciprocity outside of like a therapy client relationship. Obviously, we don't ask for our clients to take care of us, but when it comes to peers, it has to be reciprocal, right? Like that's how we feel safety in relationship is knowing I'm going to give vulnerability to you, you're going to hold it, you're going to give vulnerability to me, I'm going to hold it. And so we have to be able to step into some of that if we're going to build an accountable, supportive peer relationship that works. When it comes to thinking about your business and some of the structure side, again, the more accountability you have, the more you share vulnerably with others about your business, you also get to see how others are thinking about and structuring their businesses too, right? So this can come back to like finances. This can come back to schedules. This can come back to whatever it is of how you are literally operating your business. Sometimes that feels like the more vulnerable thing to say out loud. I don't know why, but for me, let me know if that resonates with you. When it came to like the financial side, and I first started hiring like an accountant to look at my books and help me file my taxes, like it was already scary enough to share with a professional, like, oh, I'm supposed to be saving for retirement. Oh, I'm supposed to be saving for this. Oh, I'm spending too much money. Like that feels vulnerable, right? And it's certainly something that was hard for me then to start talking with peers about. But when I started talking with my peers about money, especially in the therapy practice, that's when I started to see them open up about, yeah, I also really struggled with spending too much money. And here's how I had to get really clear on a better business budget. And here's what helps me stay accountable. So then I think, oh, okay, yeah, I never thought of that. Actually, that could be really easy for me to implement. If we're not sharing those like behind the scene things, if all we talk about is like, oh, what book have you recommended to a client for XYZ? Like, yes, that's helpful, but it doesn't again help the business side, right? I have been so inspired by seeing how some of my peers structure their business, both their therapy business, their diverse streams of income. And if they didn't share that with me and I didn't share my ideas of here's what I want to do with them, I'd probably never have made momentum on them. Right. I would say, like, oh, it's clearly too complicated to launch a course. It's clearly too complicated to create a digital product. I have no idea where to start email marketing. If I just left it at that, then I probably wouldn't have those things. But obviously I do. So it is about if you notice there are more vulnerable things that you struggle with admitting with your peers, I'm not saying go ahead and like rip the vulnerability bandage off and talk to everything with everyone, but to think about are there more safe people, right? Like I notice this person never talks about money. Maybe I don't feel safe talking about my money struggles with them. But I notice someone does openly talk about their fees. I notice someone does openly talk about how much they hate they had to pay for their quarterly taxes. They might be a person where we can say like, oh yeah, I have a question about that, right? Or oh, actually, I didn't know XYZ. Do you have resources for that? So we have to talk about the structure part of it too, because you might get better ideas for better systems that can save you time and save you money. I was using not very good systems when I started my practice. I didn't even know about Spruce until I think I got on a consultation call for someone to like help me with my website. And then they were like, oh yeah, my wife is a therapist who uses Spruce and she loves it for XYZ reasons. And I was like, oh, I didn't even know that was a thing. And then I signed up for Spruce. So we don't know what we don't know. So the more that we just get to hear from others about what systems they use, how they organize things, again, you can really just get inspired by what is it that people are doing out there, as opposed to feeling like there's only one way and there's a best way, and your ideas fall into none of it. Like that takes away your creativity. That takes away a lot of hope, again, that you have for running the business in the way that you want to be running it. So you might see how other therapists just like you are setting up their businesses so that work is only a part of their life, not their whole life. Because I can imagine all of you are here because you love helping people, and also you wanted a business that supports the rest of your life, right? To be a single parent who can pick up their kids on time, to be someone who can travel, who be someone who can send tons of money towards different charities. Like, you have your goals, and it's important to think about, is the way your business set up going to help you reach those goals? So talking with more people about what are your goals, how do you set up your business to meet those goals, that's going to give you more ideas. Really thinking about community as self-care. Self-care goes way beyond just, again, like the bubble baths, the massages, the spa days. We love all those things, and it goes beyond that. As we logically know, some of us grew up and maybe still have to combat a belief that seeking help from others is not a failure. As therapists, we logically know that, right? But sometimes we have our personal stuff that blocks it. We really have to remember that it is a vital form of self-care and professional development for therapists, not just, as I was talking about, like the business structure side, but to think about getting supervision, getting advanced trainings, getting our continuing education stuff, like any way that we engage with others who have knowledge to share, it does help our business, which helps our clients, and it helps us in our personal lives. So I have to remember that over and over again, that just because I don't know what I'm doing, just because it's not perfect, just because I'm worried I'm messing up, it doesn't mean there's not someone who can help me out there. So again, you get therapy probably for yourself. You're getting through supervision for your clients. Why not also have community support for your business? Again, just because it's solo practice, private practice, doesn't mean that it has to be just you running it. That's something I had to learn over and over again in my first like 6 to 10 months in private practice. So I want to share some practical tips that you can implement immediately to avoid burnout and create a more connected and resilient practice. Some community resources that I've taken advantage of, things that other therapists I've worked with have found very helpful. The Therapist Network, if you've not heard of that, it used to also be called the Teletherapist Network because it was founded around COVID times. And now it's the Therapist Network, and they have lots of lovely options for community consultation and connection and book clubs and themed, depending on like your specialties or any identities like BIPOC or LGBTQ plus folk, therapists, like lots of different ways to actually just connect with other therapists. So they're a fantastic resource that I have used and really did help me to feel like there are people out there like me who get it. Someone put in the chat, the Abundance Practice Building Facebook group um, is very supportive and non-toxic. Yes, love that one for sure. So if we can find some supportive Facebook groups, there are some out there that are less so, and you will know them, you will see them. They'll be the ones that you're either scared to log into or where you've asked a question and gotten some sass in return. Like, you are welcome to either block and delete or, leave the group entirely if it's not meeting your needs. There are also different local board specific associations. So I was when I was in Oregon, the Oregon Psychological Association, now a part of the Washington State Psychological Association. And they host different community events or local specific CE, professional development kind of things. So there are still ways to build more in-person connections, even though there are, we all see this webinar, for example, there are so many people that are across the country, which is fantastic. And right, we might have a virtual connection now, but if you want in-person connections, having those local board specific things can be helpful. Instagram, I also have found really helpful for building that community, right? Not just, I hardly use it to actually promote my therapy practice, but to be able to connect with other therapists and, see that they enjoy the content, that I look at other people's content and I'm like, oh, I feel like I know these people, to see how other people are growing and expanding their practices and their businesses on Instagram. It feels generally a little more supportive over there, I would say, compared to Facebook. Obviously, there's always going to be trolls and people who want to, say their piece, which is up to them. But again, in-person CE events, including retreats, doing business-focused retreats has been my favorite thing that I've done in the past 2 years. I've gone on, I think, 5 or 6 international business-focused retreats. And again, it's been a fantastic way to have a nice little tax write-off because you are getting CEs, you're doing networking and professional development. It's been a great way to just meet other people who are very much like me. People in the chat, yeah, grad school, alumni, lots of supportive Facebook groups that might be local instead of the more like, yeah, again, once we start to get a little bit more anonymous and national, even international, can be a little hit or miss. And there might be coaching programs for your specific interest or goals, like people who are interested in doing therapy groups, growing to a group practice, therapy intensives, generally like diversifying your income. When you connect with people, again, who are very much in the space that you want to be in, I've seen so much of that normalization in a coaching program, so long as you trust the coach, right? Like that is a key component of it. But to be able to see so many people lean more into the vulnerability of like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea where to start. And that is such a refreshing feeling compared to only seeing the people who look exactly like they know what they're doing. If you are here because you've seen me on Instagram and you think if you think I know what I'm doing all the time, I guarantee you I do not. I am always asking questions. I am always leaning into others for support. And that's why I mostly feel confident and I can probably appear confident, but I guarantee you these skills did not come to me overnight or inherently, as I've talked about, because I had no idea what it was like before. Things to stop doing because they're getting in the way of building community. This is where we talk about the delegating piece, right? Of if you don't have time to build more of a social life professionally or personally. I know it's also my goal to grow my social life personally because, again, I'm new here. So I have to have time out of my business to meet new friends. So if you are doing some of these things you do not have to do, that's where it comes to hiring out, right? Like I tried to do my own bookkeeping. I don't know why. It was terrible. I don't like it. So I hired an accountant, I hired a bookkeeper, I hired people to help me with that. Designing your own Canva slides. I did that forever. And again, I'm a perfectionist and I'm not very, not that I'm not creative, but I think I have a hard time with like, oh, everything has to look new and has to be centered just right, as opposed to I can, pay one of my virtual assistants to do that. And then all I care about is that it get posted, not exactly what it looks like. If you are writing your own blogs, that's an area that you can hire out. Or, being the front desk admin of your solo practice, if you are still answering all your emails and texts and phone calls and stuff like that, even as a solo provider, I thought I can do it on my own. I have a very small caseload. I was like, I'll be fine. I recently hired an admin just for my therapy practice. And like my mind has been blown with how much more supported I feel in my therapy practice. So again, I literally have a team of people that help me across both businesses. And that is so nice to be able to have weekly meetings with my team to just like touch base. And they're all there literally to support me. And if I'm like, I don't know how we can connect these two systems, like what have you seen work for other people? They're like, great, I got it. Don't worry about it. And that is so refreshing for me to not have to spend, 2 hours deep diving on a Facebook group or a Reddit thread about how to make these two systems talk to one another. Any other helpful tips? So like I'm saying, hire a virtual assistant that you can meet weekly with just to have a little bit of that community, that support. Find a local therapist that you like meeting with and meet them in person at least once a month can be very helpful. And again, this goes beyond networking because when we network, if we're trying to look for people to refer other clients to, that's helpful to maybe have some breadth as opposed to like depth. If you find one therapist again that you like their personality, you like who they are as a person, and they get the therapy aspect, and you can meet with them in person, there's a lot of those needs for connection that get met in that way. And if you do a lot of marketing, if you're on Instagram, Facebook, if you do podcasting, if you want to do community workshops or national workshops based on what your niche is, collaborate with other people on that, right? You literally don't have to do those things alone either. It's some of these small things that just get us a little bit more connection in a day-to-day way that doesn't feel like a chore. It doesn't feel like it's too much. It doesn't feel unsustainable. So that's what I have for information. You all have been putting some really good content in the chat throughout this hour. I really appreciate that. So just kind of open time for any questions at this point. Carrie, did you see anything pop up that I missed?
I think people have largely been leveraging chat to kind of keep the dialogue flowing. And I too have seen a lot of great feedback come in. Haven't seen any direct questions, but it's probably because you covered so much amazing content. Like I've been captivated throughout this whole session. And I've been known to multitask. So I really, really enjoyed everything you shared. And even though I'm not a therapist, I felt like so much of it was relatable, even for my world. So I loved it. But folks, we've got a few minutes left, and this is your opportunity to tap Amanda's brain while we have her live. That's the beauty of these live events, is that we actually have the speaker here to answer those questions. So if you think of anything, feel free to drop it into the Q&A. Amanda, one thought I had, if folks want to connect with you, what's the best way to do that?
Mhm. Where I'm most active is Instagram. So that handle is I can type it in the chat. It's at Amanda KB Coaching. It will also link my therapy account if anyone wants to see the therapy content that I put out and ways I connect with therapists that way. But yeah, that's the easiest way. If anyone wants to connect over email, they can send me a DM to that account and then I can provide my email as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Let's see. Yes, okay, I see some about, yes, you'll get a copy of the slides for sure. Question from Nicola, do you find that accountants that specialize in working with therapists are best, or does it matter? Any other financial tips?
Yes, I do find accountants that specialize working with therapists are best because they can give way more personalized feedback on like what can count as a tax deduction or not. If you have an accountant or a bookkeeper who just serves business owners, they may say like, well, that wouldn't qualify. That's maybe a stretch. And yes, everyone's trying to look out for your best interests, but those who specialize in working with therapists like Heard is the company that I joined early in my private practice. They very much like they're all about we will go to bat for you on what counts as a tax write-off or not.
I was just going to ask you that because I've heard a lot about Herd.
Uh-huh.
That people do seem to really, really like that.
Yes.
Seems they're especially good for solos and small practices. So,
Yes.
yeah, so that's a good one. I'm also curious with respect to your assistant. Do you have a virtual assistant, or do you have somebody that actually comes and like sits with you?
Yes, I have four different virtual assistants across my therapy business and then my coaching business as well. So
Oh,
we do have weekly meetings where we just get to touch base of like, how are you? What's up in life? And then we like get down to business stuff. So even though it's virtual, it's been nice to have the consistent touch points so that I'm always getting to know them and they get to also support
oh.
me.
Well, and are you able to share how you found those virtual assistants?
Yeah, there's for my therapy practice, I went through a company called Ginger Desk. I just put
Yeah,
that in the chat.
they're great. Yes.
Yes, they're fantastic. They come very well trained. So I didn't
Yeah,
have to like do any training outside of like my preferred standard operating procedures.
I love
And
it.
then for my other ones who help with things like my blogs, my emails, putting together any like webinar slides or stuff like that, there was a company I used called It's Sarah Wiles. If you put Sarah Wiles VA matchmaking into Google, you should be able to find her. I think she recently renamed the company to like Start and Grow Co.
Oh,
So if you
okay.
search either of those,
Love
they're
it.
fantastic. You can say, this is what my budget is. This is what I need my VA to do. Here are
Mm.
some personality things I would, appreciate in a team member. And then, yeah, you really get to hire best fits.
Oh my goodness. Well, and if anyone is interested on that front, we're actually hosting what we call a VA Palooza next month. Um,
Amazing.
I know we bring on four different we have Ginger Desk, we have Snap Scale, Move Forward, and Silverleaf. And so they'll all be joining us to kind of talk about their approach to sourcing, putting VAs with the right folks. And anywho, if it's of interest, be sure to join us for that. And I see that we are now at time, but this has been incredible, Amanda. Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you got to do this with us today, and we're going to have to do it again. Everyone's saying how helpful this has been, and it really has. So thank you to everybody who joined, and I hope that we see you next month.
Thank you, everyone, for your time today. Thanks for being here. Thanks for catching the recording if that's where you're spending time with us today.
Yeah. Bye, guys.
Bye.